Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others, aspiring to be them, can follow in their footsteps.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Latte with a Lawyer. I'm your host, Jonathan Brickman, and this afternoon we have with us Furquan Muhammad from MST Law. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I realize it's still morning there, right? You're in Chicago.
Correct. It's morning-ish.
Okay, good. Late morning. So just to keep with the theme of the show, Latte with a Lawyer, what's your morning beverage of choice?
Masala Indian chai. So, and I'm not talking about the the Starbucks powdery stuff. I'm talking about, cooking black tea with milk for 30 minutes, adding a bunch of warm spices. It makes my morning.
Wow, you do that every day?
Every single day, every day.
No kidding. So your family's from India?
Pakistan, but we all share the same national pastime, which is drinking chai and talking.
Right. Well, at one time it was all India, right? So
That's that's right. Fair enough.
We won't go down that road.
They share a lot more in common than they do differences.
I know. I realize that. What's Islamabad? What city?
Karachi, the
Karachi.
port city in the south of Pakistan. Yep.
Okay, very good. Good deal. So I wasn't sure by the name. I'm guessing, but you guys practice Islam there, or?
Yeah, Pakistan is primarily Muslim. India obviously has a sizable Muslim population as well. In recent years, you kind of see and hear the wrong things about what's been going on there. It's truly unfortunate, but in our line of work and what we do here in the U.S., we all kind of work together. We're all in the same community.
Yeah, good. Okay, excellent. And wait, did you grow up here in the States, or did you?
I did. Yep, I was born and raised in Chicago. Pretty much spent my whole life here.
Okay, good. And it looks like you're west of Chicago. I lived in Chicago for about 3.5 years, so.
Where?
On the north side, and then I lived in Evanston for about 3 years.
Okay. Well, you'll know I actually live in Morton Grove, so just a stone's throw from.
Oh yeah. Wait, is it?
Yeah.
Wait. Let me think now. Michael Jordan, did he live there?
He lived in Highland Park. I believe his mega mansion is in Highland Park.
Oh, it's in Highland Park. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been to Morton Grove.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good memory on Jordan though.
Yeah. No, I knew that, but I thought I thought it was a little further west. I didn't think it was Highland Park.
Yeah, just a little north of Evanston.
Okay. Yeah. All those areas are beautiful. Very nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your law practice. What kind of law you practice?
So I'm primarily now, I would say, a personal injury lawyer, but there's a couple of different niche industries that I service. If you were to Google my name, you'll see a lot on the Chicago taxi industry. So I'm very involved with that community as a, I would say, I guess, a licensing lawyer. I've done a lot of Islamic estate planning, which is a very unique niche area of law that kind of combines the intersection of Islamic law as well as secular estate planning law. So my career has kind of gone through a couple of iterations over the years. But I guess if I had to define myself now, it's probably in those three areas.
Oh, interesting. Why the taxi industry is interesting. How did you get involved with that?
So I just growing up in a South Asian family, I had a lot of kind of friends and family who were involved in the taxi industry. But unrelated to that, actually, I started out my career in big law. Started practicing law in 2012 to 2017, but at the tail end of my career in big law, I was doing a lot of pro bono work. And one of the pro bono things that came up at one of the clinics this was right around the time, Jonathan, you might remember, Uber had just kind of come into town, a lot of cities, and they were just flooding the market, flooding the streets with Uber rides and kind of like the subsidized, equity venture capital funds. And a lot of these taxi drivers in some of these big cities, Chicago, New York, San Fran, they had loans on their taxi licenses, right? So a Medallion in New York was worth at its peak about 1.3 million. Here in Chicago, it was worth 350 at its prime, so 350,000. So to fund that, a lot of these ethnic community drivers would take out, these massive loans. And when Uber came in, the value of these medallions just plummeted. So at the pro bono clinic that I was, again, just a volunteer at, it wasn't my line of work, but I had all these drivers coming in with these loan documents that they signed, right? Personal guarantees, you can lose everything if you default on this loan. So one of the reasons I actually left Big Law was because I found one of my callings to be that I wanted to help these drivers who were struggling with these taxi loans to renegotiate the debt, to refinance the debt, to settle the debt, to, if they had to do bankruptcy, we did bankruptcy, we did anything and everything we could to save these small businesses and these families. But that was back in like 2017 to 2019 or so, that was kind of like the biggest wave of these taxi loans. And then thankfully that a lot of that work dried up, right? But then that's where a lot of my personal injury came into play, because these same drivers are the ones who are on the road 24/7, right? So once I settled their loan, a lot of these drivers started to know me, and it's a very insular community. It's a very niche community. Once you do right by a couple of them, they put the word out there that, Furquan Muhammad is the guy to go to if you get into an injury or a car accident or any legal issue. So these drivers just started coming back to me. So post COVID, I would say my taxi work is relatively less now. I still do a lot of the medallion transfers, which means that if somebody's buying or selling a medallion, I might be one of the attorneys representing the party. But a lot of it is now kind of transitioned into personal injury, car accidents. A lot of the drivers who are actually Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, rideshare, gig drivers, they've now come to know me and who I am. So that's kind of how the personal injury side came into play too.
Yeah, very interesting story. So I'm curious. So what happened? So the value of those medallions have plummeted, right? So what happened? I mean, are they on the hook? Were they able to?
Well, so for the most part, for whatever reason, we were able to kind of negotiate out most of the drivers. The vast majority of the small businesses that owned one medallion to a couple medallions, we might pay a lump sum and then the banks would forgive the rest of the debt. Some of them we did like a refinance where if they pay a lesser amount over, 3 years or 5 years, the bank would forgive all the remaining debt. Sometimes we just didn't have the option for that, so we would do a bankruptcy and get the debt off of their name. Anything and everything we could do, we did. But that's how the industry then stabilized. So a lot of these drivers, came back driving as lease drivers, but they could buy a medallion again. Now the price is about 12,000. So if you wanted to buy a medallion in the city of Chicago, you can do it with $12,000. So in some ways, it's also contributed to a resurgence because drivers are, now that Uber prices and Lyft prices have gone up, in the last couple of years, they've gone up exponentially. Taxis made a great comeback, partly because their rates haven't changed. It's the same meter rate that you were paying, 5 years ago. And, the other Uber and Lyft drivers, the surge pricing. There's a new Curb app, if you're familiar, Jonathan. I know you're into the tech side of things. Curb's a good company that's created basically the Uber for taxis. So you can hail a taxi that's a flat fee with no surge pricing, and you can get it from the app just like you would get an Uber. So a lot of the things that contributed to rebuilding the industry, but it's changed a lot over the last couple of years. Now it's almost all owner operators. There's no real business in managing medallions like there used to be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So taxi can, I'm going to check that out. So taxis can be even more competitive now than Uber.
Oh, they are. Yep. So actually in the last couple of years, ABC did a study it's a small sample size, but their I-team did an investigation on like what's the quickest way to get to from Union Station to Soldier Field and back, and what's the pricing, if you take an Uber during this time and that time. So it was really fascinating. But even as of like 2 years ago, taxis started beating out the Uber prices, and that gap has actually only grown, I think, in the more recent 18 months.
No kidding. Well, I wonder if that's national. I mean, by default, I use Uber, but you're right. I've been the victim of surge pricing. It's like, holy hell.
Well, you got to give them credit for their marketing. I mean, they made it a verb, right? I mean, you Uber anywhere now that you need to go, but you don't realize that you've kind of become beholden to their model.
Yeah.
But now you're paying a lot more than you did 5 years ago.
Huh. Well, I'm going to check out Curb.
Definitely.
The next Curb I'm on, which I'm going to actually have the option. I'm going to LA, and I would normally just take an Uber from where I'm going, but I will be checking out Curb. So thanks for that.
Definitely, let me know. I'm curious. Do your own mini study in LA and let me know how it goes.
No, I will. It's funny. I would try Lyft because they were a little more competitive. I have to tell you, Lyft, I know they're going through some problems. They just changed CEOs. They were just not as reliable
No.
as
I
Uber.
mean, here's the thing. I mean, if you were in any kind of transportation industry, the cost to maintain a vehicle, the costs associated with running this kind of business, it's not conducive to the low prices that they had.
No.
You simply, if you're an owner driver, you simply couldn't make a business work if you had a car loan, if you had, any other related expenses. And you got to keep in mind, there's smaller things that come into play with it.
Mm.
Everything from insurance, being an increased cost to you're going to get the occasional ticket, right? You're going to get an occasional ticket, a red light, speeding camera. You're going to get all that stuff. It's part of the cost of doing business, but the margins are so small that, any small accident, my drivers would get sent back, because you have a $2,500 deductible with Uber. That's going to set you back a month, right?
Yeah.
So just a lot of hidden costs that you don't realize. And a lot of the drivers I know that were driving Uber, Lyft, they just couldn't make the means work. A lot of them actually left the taxi industry back in 2016, 2017. They actually came back some years later because the Uber model wasn't working anymore. The rates have changed, the commissions have changed. So again, not to, Uber has its own place in this world, but it's all contributed to kind of like the resurgence of the taxi and
Yeah, I love it. That's fantastic. So I mean, so you're helping the little guy basically. So a lot of guys like you, I've also do criminal defense too, because it's the same theme, right?
Correct. Although from my side, it's, you talk about overlapping client bases, overlapping industries and law. That's how I got into personal injury. So not criminal defense as much. I do get the occasional traffic ticket,
Yeah.
things like that maybe I could have capitalized on. But the bigger thing for me was once the drivers know you, they need a personal injury lawyer. And that's where I started staking my claim within the same network. So it's once you get into like a community or a group, and Jonathan, I think you have a business background, right? So I know this marketing and business. Once you get in with the group, it's the practical side of it is how can I capitalize on this group or this industry that I know and sell them another product that's equally valuable to them. That's really it, right? So I don't need to go and create a new client base for a whole different practice area if I can just do the same thing with the community I have.
There you go. That's a classic re-merchandising the same market.
That's it. I didn't know how to phrase it, but you got it. Re-merchandising.
That's right. Yeah, that's interesting. So so personal injury is your focus, and is there any flavor of that? Is it mostly auto accidents? You do other things?
I would say it's mostly auto accident. Within auto accidents, and this is again one of those niche things, but within auto accidents, one of my focus, I would say I have two focus points. One is it's a community, right? So South Asian, Pakistani, Indian, I would say, over 50% of my clients are South Asian.
Okay.
By South Asian, I mean either Muslim, Indian, Pakistani, Middle Eastern, Ethiopian, Somalian, kind of like these ethnic communities that are involved in the taxi industry or the rideshare industry. So that's one way I focus my personal injury practice. And the other way is that I would say I'm more familiar than most personal injury lawyers on commercial policies, Uber, Lyft policies, taxi insurance, your delivery driver policies. I've had a couple of Turo cases, things that other lawyers don't really see very often. I'm seeing on an everyday basis because that's the client base that I tend to have.
Okay. Are there caps in Illinois for those cases?
There are no caps. I mean, so there's insurance policy limits, right? So we work off the insurance policy limit for the other driver.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there's no cap on what a verdict could be.
Okay. And sometimes you break the policy too, I would assume.
It happens on a very select occasion, but for the most part, we're not trying to chase after somebody else for money. We'll kind of work within the policy, assuming the facts are not egregious or whatnot, and the injuries aren't egregious. We stay within the policy limit. We try to do, the main thing is we try to explain to our client what the process is, what it entails. If there is policy limits, kind of explain that to them, let them know what the expectations are. And honestly, those factors go a long way with making sure clients are satisfied with the work we do.
Okay. And the rest of the firm, same, or you do other?
So it's a unique structure we have, but it's basically, we have two partners. I'm really primarily personal injury and taxi industry. My partner is more real estate and estate planning.
Okay.
So one of the things I think I also mentioned, Islamic estate planning is one of the areas that I'm very focused on from a marketing perspective. We'll do a lot of presentations, seminars and things at mosques, at different community groups that want to learn about how to do estate planning while also being Islamically compliant, because there are some Islamic rules associated with estate planning that, people don't really know about.
Okay, interesting. And so that's it. Is you got two partners, right?
I have two other partners. One of them is kind of on a leave because he's got a family business to run, so he's involved tangentially, but more so from a back end marketing perspective and kind of business development perspective. The two main partners that we have,
Yeah.
those are kind of the core of our practice areas.
Oh, I see. Okay, very good. And do you ever get in front of a jury in your work?
Not so much anymore. I mean, so what my work has kind of turned into now with the growing cases that I've had is I've built kind of partnerships with other firms that I know and trust. So a lot of my personal injury work now, I'll keep a handful of cases, but most of my cases now I end up co-counseling on because I don't have the time to go to trial. I don't have the time to litigate. And that's what I kind of started my career in big law and litigation. So I was a commercial litigator. So I learned it really well. But some of the practicalities and realities of law is if you're really successful at it from a marketing and business perspective, you have less and less time to practice. More and more time is spent developing relationships, building communities, advising clients. I focus more so on that part now than I do in actually going to status hearings, prepping for discovery, depositions, trial. I have a good team that I trust on the back end helping me with those cases, depending on the type of case. But my time, a successful day for me now might be going to that taxi office that I don't have a contact at and building a network with them to make sure that if one of their drivers needs a licensing issue or they have an injury case, they turn to me. So for me, again, it turns into like what's success for a lawyer. It's kind of different on it depends on who you are, what your angle is. But for me, success might be very different than what another lawyer might define as success for themselves. Be it a large verdict or a large case settlement or an M&A deal going through, whatever the case might be.
So how do you define it?
To me, I would define it probably as, do my clients know who I am? Do they trust who I am? Do they know that they can turn to me for help? So I would probably define as that. But honestly, it's more from a business marketing perspective, right? So it's that angle that I'm defining success. But some people might define it, with the types of clients they work. If they represent Google, they might consider themselves to be a great lawyer. If they got a huge verdict, they might consider themselves. But for me, I'm almost obsessing over business development from a lawyer perspective, because that's what I found to be one of the greatest things that you can do it to be a great lawyer. And I have a lot of thoughts that I've kind of gone through just starting in big law, seeing that side of the world and how those folks practice, and then kind of branching out and creating my own firm with almost nothing and developing these niche communities, these niche practice areas that, have, I think, however you would define success, I feel like I've gotten there in many ways because I've been able to do this. So
it sounds like there's more throughput, and the heavy lifting you share that with another.
Correct. So depending on the case, there's a couple of cases a couple of firms that I've kind of developed good relationships with. I trust their work. I know they're good for it, but that allows me to open up my time for more of the business development, more of the marketing, more of the client handholding. And I don't pass off that kind of work. I do that myself, partly because I value that side of it so much that I want to make sure my clients have 100% access to me, be it through WhatsApp, be it through Telegram, be it through, text message and phone call, whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
But part of it is I'd rather focus on that part than, getting unfortunately stuck in a deposition for 6 hours, right? So there's a lot of realities to practicing law that, I think the best thing you can do if you're a lawyer is find what you're really, really good at and kind of focus on that and kind of compartmentalize the other things so that you have the right person doing the right things, and that frees your time up to do, what you're really, really good at.
I mean, you sound like a business person, honestly. So, right?
Let me, if you don't mind, Jonathan, I'll kind of explain what I saw in big law, and I think that'll help color why I am who I am now. But what I realized in big law was, there's different types of attorneys, right? There's what we would call like the grinders, right? The guys who are really just hammering home the work product. They're cranking out work product and memos and deposition prep outlines, things, whatever the case might be. You have the minders who are kind of like the managing attorneys at these for these cases, right? They're the ones helping kind of establish all the things that need to be done for a particular large case. And then at the top end of that pyramid, you have the finders, right? The ones who found the clients, the ones who develop the business relationships. And what I realized after a couple of years was, the attorneys that were the most, indispensable, the ones that you would maybe define as the most successful, quote unquote, were the ones that had the client relationships, right? And within even those finders, and this is where I think it's a little more unique of what I saw, was not all finders were equal, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you define them by their book of business, but there were some finders who they basically just kind of stumbled into it, right? Their roommate in college ended up becoming a CEO of a large company, and they ended up inheriting this huge client, not because they're necessarily a great lawyer, but because they have a relationship with somebody that they didn't even know was going to end up becoming a big deal. You had, I think, what I would call like inheritor finders, which is they did really good work for somebody, right, for a client or a partner, and they slowly inherited part of that book of business from that finder, right? And then I think the third category, this is the one I had the most kind of respect for, was the organic, what I call the organic finders. They were the ones who were out there developing niches, developing industry expertise, going and making these pitches to these businesses for litigation, for deals, whatever the case might be. But when I saw what these partners were doing, that's when I realized, like, this is the one that can always be self-sufficient, right? At the end of the day, they go and get their own business, they market, they develop it themselves. And the more I stayed in there, I kind of made this realization, I think, much earlier than a lot of people do. But year 3 or 4, I realized this. I just kind of wanted to learn as much as I could about business development, about building relationships, building networks, finding a way to develop an expertise. And then, once you do that, the clients kind of just, they come rolling in. I don't have any, social media marketing. I don't have any marketing budget. I don't have any advertising budget. I don't have any billboards, but I have a ton of cases that come in, a lot of people that reach out just because they hear good things. So once you get into these communities, once you can become that person that is known for something, you've made the connections, that's where the business comes from.
Well, that's classic marketing, right? You build a brand.
You build a brand. That's exactly it. So some people do it in different ways, but for you as a young lawyer, maybe, or as whatever profession you're in, that's what you kind of need to think through. Like, what's the best way for me to become the best version of me, where I'm developing what I want to develop.
Yeah. So tell me, why'd you become a lawyer? How'd you become a lawyer?
This is, I think I entered for the wrong reasons. I mean, this was in the mid 2000s. I mean, I don't think the resources that we have today for young lawyers is the same that I had even 15 years ago when I was kind of considering law school. But honestly, other than Law and Order and Suits, the TV shows, we didn't have much else, right? There wasn't all these extensive Google resources. There weren't kind of all these stories out there about what lawyers actually do, YouTube videos. All that kind of came later. So I think I initially went in thinking this is going to be fame and fortune and glory, and I'm going to dress up really nice every day and do crazy work, and there's going to be these aha moments in trial, and we're going to have somebody break down and confess to a crime. Yeah, you probably know, having interviewed so many lawyers, Jonathan, that the practice of law is totally not like that for 99.9% of the people.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
So I think I went in for the wrong reason, but the beauty of it is I stayed a lawyer because I found good reasons to stay a lawyer. So, whether that's, and again, it kind of goes back to the marketing. I love what I do now. And I keep finding a new way to develop it, whether that be Islamic estate planning, which has a place in my heart. The tax industry has a place in my heart. The personal injury, again, I didn't do personal injury 5 years ago. This is a recent kind of evolution of who I am in my practice and my client base. But in 2 years, I might have another specialty that I'm now marketing and tailoring to. So it's defined who I am and what my practice of law is. But I keep finding good reasons that keep me fulfilled to stay a lawyer.
Got it. So what would be your advice today for somebody thinking about a law career?
I would say go in for the right reasons, be pragmatic. So I strongly recommend people do their research now. Again, even 15 years ago, we forget how quickly we've come up as as an online community, but there's a lot more resources now. Know what the practice of law entails, be realistic about it. It's not the fame and fortune that you might see on TV or see as a one-off instance. A lot of what lawyers do is completely different. Shadow lawyer, work at a law firm if you can, even before you go to law school. I've had a lot of people come to me thinking that they're going to do international human rights, right? I mean, it sounds like a great practice area, but realistically, what percentage of lawyers do international human rights? It's 0.0001. So a lot of that is, make sure you're going in for the right reasons now, like not what I did. And then I think for diverse attorneys, people from different backgrounds, people that don't have a lot of kind of a well-trodden path within law, I didn't have any South Asian Pakistani lawyers to really look up to. I found a few mentors, and I'm very grateful to them. But honestly, what I realized is if you're a diverse attorney as well, it's not going to be the same path that you might see other people go on. You're going to have to find your own path, maybe because you're kind of trailblazing in many ways. But if you can use that diversity as a strength, kind of like, again, every career is going to be different, but that's what I feel like I tried to do is I didn't find anyone that did what I did. So I kind of charted my own path. And, I used my own diversity, my own kind of ethnic background as a asset. And that's what's defined my career.
Yeah, interesting. Anyone else in your family, attorneys?
No. So, I mean, the few people that I had as mentors, no relation to me whatsoever. I found them once I started practicing to kind of help guide me. But again, my career took a completely different turn. A lot of those attorneys are still in big law, still practicing the way they did 10 years ago. My practice has changed considerably. So now as a mentor, I look at them more for higher level guidance, or as opposed to practice area guidance or, big law related guidance, things like that I might have initially leaned on them on.
Okay. So where do you want to go? What's the goal for you?
I mean, that's a great question. I really take it 1 year at a time. I mean, I've as you know, Jonathan, you're always creating marketing plans and kind of like a 5-year plan, and it's constantly changing. So I don't know, honestly. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not beholden to anyone or anything. So if I see something tomorrow when I wake up as a new potential hot area, if I see a new community that needs something, my practice might shift a bit, and I might take that on as a new passion project. So honestly, I don't know. Let's do this again in 5 years and we'll see.
Well, I mean, do you belong to any of these groups like Pilma, any of these like business marketing groups?
I don't, and I know one of I heard you ask a couple of people on the podcast that I watched of yours, which by the way, I loved it. I kind of listen in my car now to a couple episodes whenever I can. I know one of your questions is always like, who are the influencers? Who do you follow? Kind of that kind of question.
Yeah.
Honestly, part of it is I'm not on social media, but the other rationality I have to it is I'm not swayed by any one particular person or influence. I would call myself maybe like an equal opportunity influencee, meaning that I can get swayed in a lot of different directions, and I love that, right? So sometimes I might hear somebody say something that I kind of integrate into my own practice or into my own, MO, that if I was just particularly following only 3 people, I might not have seen that diverse viewpoint. So I try to be open to everything. I don't follow any particular person. I kind of find the path that I find, and it changes weekly, monthly, yearly.
Yeah.
The marketing plan changes, the business plan changes constantly. But I'm open to whatever and everything.
Yeah. No, I like that. No, I meant there are some real like specific groups now to help law firms think more like a business. You're already doing that, and you've discovered that in your own. But there are many groups now, like formal, like
yeah. What do you, if you don't mind me asking, Jonathan, what would you say are your top 3?
So one is called Pilma. That's why I was wondering if you're familiar with it.
No, actually,
PILMMA.
PIMMA?
No, LMMA.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. No, I don't.
Yeah, Pilma. In fact, that's specifically what the mandate is, right? To help personal injury lawyers marketing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I'll have to look into that one for
personal
sure.
injury lawyers. In fact, that's what it stands for. Personal Injury Lawyer Marketing and Management Association, PILMA.
Very interesting. No, see, that's the thing.
There you
I
go.
didn't, yeah, no, that's awesome. I didn't know there was a particular group focused on that, but that's
Oh
pretty
yeah,
amazing.
and there are lots of firms that help, through marketing, SEO, help you find,
Yeah,
get new clients. But I mean, you have a nice niche, which again, I totally agree with that approach, right?
yeah. It's a big field, but you can try to do everything, or you can try to find a community or an angle that, a lot of people aren't seeing it from, and it'll come to you then. So
You,
like I said, I don't, there's no SEO campaign. I'm not paying anything for this marketing. It's all word of mouth. It's all organic. It's all from sources that know me, trust me. They know I'm responsive. They know I'm on top of it.
and you're
And
not
I'm
running out
approachable.
of, and you're not running out of opportunities in case
No,
they keep.
no. That's yeah, no. It's a blessing. Believe me, it's a blessing.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, so you've really accomplished what most every business wants to accomplish, right? It's called inbound, right? People come to you.
That's it. Yeah. If you can find a way to get people to come to you, that's where I think, marketing focus helps, right? Niche industry helps. Taxi drivers just know me. That's really just it. So I don't need to market to them as much as if they ask, they're gonna find out.
Yeah, and your work, it's all just regional around Illinois,
Pretty
Chicago.
much, and almost primarily around Chicago. So it's a Chicago taxi industry. I would say like my South Asian community is a little broader. It's kind of Chicago and the collar counties. So I have
Okay.
clients all the way from Libertyville, Mundelein kind of area down to Bridgeview, and kind of like South Side Chicago.
Well, Chicago's a very segregated place, right? So where is the
It is.
heavy population?
The heavy population for me is kind of like there's a little India section in the north side. You might know Devon Avenue.
Okay.
I have a ton of clients from that area. North side of Chicago is a big, Middle Eastern community, so I have a ton of folks from that area. And then just kind of like the north suburbs, Des Plaines, Park Ridge, Niles, Morton Grove, and then like Oak Brook, Naperville, Glendale Heights, Lombard. Kind of like there's big sizable pockets of our community, like the Indian Pakistani community in these areas. So a lot of my clients tend to be there. A lot of my networks are there. Um, be it therapists, be it leasing, managing offices for taxis. They're all kind of centered in the same areas.
Okay. Tell your guys there's an app that they should look at if they haven't seen. It's called Gridwise.
What's it called?
Gridwise.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I don't want to take up too much time talking about it, but it's designed for rideshare drivers to be more efficient
Oh,
on the road.
okay.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
check that out.
I will. You gave me some homework to do, Jonathan, which is awesome. I love homework.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's how listen, these kind of conversations always lead to something, right?
That's it. That's it.
So just in closing here, so I let you get back to work. What do you want to leave with the audience about your firm and the best way to connect?
I mean, you can have my cell phone. It's on my flyers. It's on everything. If you ever have questions, reach out. I try to be as approachable as possible. I try to be as open as possible. I try to communicate and relate to whether it's a taxi driver to the folks I used to represent in Big Law that I still have some clients from that, I did a lot of high end work for. So I kind of focus on everyone in some ways. Right. So, I love what I do, but it's a product of many years of trial and error. So you may not like what you initially get into, but if you're going to get stuck with it, you're doing yourself a disservice. Always keep an open mind. Always be willing to kind of shift gears, shift focus, shift outlook, and you'll find success in ways that you never thought. Um, I think that's good.
Excellent, good. Well, listen, I appreciate the time. It's interesting, really interesting.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, John. I was really, really just happy to have you reach out. I'm just curious, how did you find out about, and I don't know if you're going to cut this part out maybe, but how did you come across my name? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
we'll finish out. I do want to cut. Let me when I turn off, we'll chat. But just for everybody, again, this is Furquan Muhammad, and The law firm is MST Law in Chicago. And this is sponsored by EmotionTrac, which is a legal tech platform that helps litigators prepare for mediation trials with our Insights platform.
Thanks for having me again, Jonathan.
Oh, you bet.